Hey, this is Heidi Lynch.
And I'm Perrie Voss. And this is Avocado Toast, the series podcast.
Our web series was inspired by our real life experiences,
The great ones
and the heartbreaking ones. And our podcast series is inspired by the community around us, the people we collaborate with, the people who lift us up, the people who listen when things aren't going so well and celebrate when things are.
And in our podcast, we wanted to reach out and chat with other artists and creators to find out what makes them tick, what inspires them,
what drives them,
what brings them joy.
We hope that they inspire you as much as they inspired us.
Today, Perrie chats with Charlie David, who's an incredible producer, and we were lucky enough to have him as our head producer on Avocado Toast, the series. Hi, Charlie David.
Hi, how's it going today?
Good, how are you?
Great.
Good. It is so nice to have you here. Charlie is one of our incredible producers, the head producer of Avocado Toast, the series. And
One of three. We did it together.
We did do it together, but much under your guidance and leadership, thank goodness, because you also have Border2Border Entertainment, which is such an incredible space for queer content.
Yeah, it's I didn't know that this is where we would arrive at, obviously, when I started the company about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And when I did, it was I wanted to make movies that were queer, but that I could also share with like my grandmother and like different family members and be like, hey, you can watch this. And it's like a doorway into a conversation, right?
Right.
So because I think at the time I had just done the show Dantes Cove and we were like on our third season or something. And that was a fairly racy, crazy soap opera.
Okay.
That we were filming in like Hawaii and Turks and Caicos, and it was mostly like half naked people with a lot of baby oil on. And I was like, I think like grandma might like this, but like, maybe she'll like a family drama better. So
I mean, I feel like grandmas would love a naked, oiled up man.
There probably are some that watch. It's surprising. I still, every once in a while we'll get an email or something, or messaged on social from people who are watching it, because I think it just got launched again on Hulu or something in the States, and so it's like one of these, like the Golden Girls on Amazon, right? Like pulling out these oldie goldies, and then people are rediscovering them. So
where can people watch this, Charlie?
Nowhere. I'm totally kidding. Yeah, I'm not kidding about you. Listen, if you're going to watch it, the best way to do it is to smoke a lot of weed, or definitely have a lot of martinis, and make it a game. Like every time somebody throws a fireball, take a drink, because that was something I had to do. There's lots of magic and witches and warlocks on that island. So.
Wow. Fireball. I love it. Oh my God. So that sort of then like was the impetus behind you wanting to create more family friendly content, but also with a queer slant.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Because I mean, not everything I do is family friendly. There's also like the popcorn series and other, very sex positive docs and stuff that I have fun doing. But I think it was just like for yourself with Avocado Toast. I felt like I had stories that I wanted to create and share and put out there and be more in the driver's seat, which is what we get to do when, it's something that you write or that you produce yourself. Because, I was the same as you prior to that. Mm-hmm. As an actor, you're really just like, you're this hired gun, you're handed, you're told what to say. And of course we have some creative input as well.
Yeah.
But, it can depend. If you're, on a show for a long time, then obviously you have more creative input. But a lot of the gigs that we do, it might be you're stepping on set for one day in a movie or a couple of days on this TV show. And your job is really just to like honor the story, do your job and get out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's good to create content that means something to you that then you can turn into a larger conversation and have more a stamp on, right?
Totally.
Which is what you've done. And I think your platform is incredible for that. And I'm excited to see how much more is getting added all the time and what you're working on. And So has that been keeping you busy then during COVID times, or have you had to take breaks and read books and music and all that stuff, or what do you?
No, my gosh, I can't wait for that period.
Yeah.
I'm super excited to take a break. I was saying to my partner this morning, I was like, when we finally can get on a plane to Argentina, I'm telling you right now, I'm not coming back. It's going to be a one-way flight wherever we choose in the world. And like, yeah, no, I mean, I think the busyness has like also been very helpful because it's kept me focused and engaged in different things. And, so we've had a few shows that we're just finishing filming as the COVID craziness started.
Mhm.
And so I've really had my head down working with editors and, post sound people and VFX and the networks and stuff, finishing those shows, as well as putting some, new ones into development. So also working with writers. So that's been really fun too. We've had, a few teams of writers working, and that kind of creative impulse and moving the engine forward, even though we can't film stuff right now,
Yeah.
has kept me sane.
Yeah, I get that. And I mean, we sort of had a similar experience. I was saying to someone else yesterday, like most people, when the world shut down, so did all of their work and their,
Mm-hmm.
but we were so involved in post, like we didn't get that lull right when the pandemic sort of exploded. So
Totally.
we've been in kind of a parallel universe of like staying crazy busy, and
Yeah.
everyone else is like, I'm so bored, and we're like, we're not.
No. Well, even when we could have, like with the Avocado Toast team, we chose to pull together, the team of writers and move forward and like write that second season, right?
Yeah.
Where often, it's like you don't necessarily choose to do things like that if you don't have the money in place. But we thought, what the heck, let's spend some now and keep going and just cross our fingers and believe that it will happen. And I really think that it will, that it's performing really well at the film festivals and stuff, and more digital platforms are picking it up, which is great. And feels like it's still in this like discovery phase. It took a while, like when we put it out in May, and then I really started to see the numbers kind of climbing like, August, September. So
Right. Yeah.
the world was also very noisy in the spring and summer, right?
Yeah.
Like with a lot of other conversations that really needed to be looked at and listened to and amplified. And I think that's the thing too, when we're putting things out there, sometimes you can make a plan, but you also have to be ready to roll and dodge and tumble in brand new ways that you don't expect.
Yeah. And this year particularly is so unprecedented with that, and us having to kind of roll with the punches as things came up and moved things around. But we're doing it.
Yeah, we're doing it.
Was there like a favorite part for you of the whole process? Because you've been with us basically from before we even got funding.
Yeah.
Up until now, going into season 2. So, I mean, I know that I've learned a ton, and I know how I want to sort of grow and move forward. But like, do you have a favorite part of that process? Like,
For
anywhere
sure. Like many different parts.
else?
I mean, I love the part of producing that is really, I mean, if I use the analogy of a show being a plant, it's like from when you have that first seed, right? And you have to decide where to plant it and how to fertilize it and water it and all that stuff. And so at the beginning with, you, Heidi, and myself, that process of even figuring out, okay, we want to make this show.
Yeah.
How big are we going to make it? How are we going to pay for it? That's always like the biggest conundrum, right? And, as those wins came in, as we had, because those funding applications and stuff, they're crazy. They're robust. It takes a team of 3 people. It's like a full-time job, a month for each one. And when we were successful, I mean, that was super exciting. And then growing the team, meeting so many new people, a few that I'd worked with before, and then so many others that I never had.
Yeah.
And feeling like we had like a rock star team, like so solid, from A to Z, and with so many people that we've chosen to work with again, like in, you know, either for a second season, in addition to spilling off into like whole new creative directions and new shows.
Yeah.
So that's really cool because it feels like, you know, at the end of the day, it's kind of like being at a summer camp or something, making a show.
Yes.
For me, that's like when it feels like you're in that zone, that's the best, right? Where it's like everybody is having fun because you're eating together, you're working ridiculous, like 14, 16-hour days, and you know how everybody smells in a good way, freshly showered, and at the end of it, a very long day. And so it's like family,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I mean, with us even going up to the cottage, like it felt like we were just a bunch of like an extended family just hanging out after we had wrapped for the day, and just, you know, like
For sure.
it becomes so close so quickly. And yeah, we get to create little families on our sets, which is so
Yeah,
cool, right?
it's so good.
Yeah.
But I'm also, you know, I'm excited about like what the writers are looking at thematically for the second season too. Like I think we touched on some really important and very personal stuff, especially for you and Heidi in the first season, right?
Yeah.
But then looking forward to season two, you know, in ways we're going deeper, sometimes darker, but still having some real levity and comedy. Like I've had such a fun time reading the scripts and not knowing where, you know, where you're all going to go.
Right.
And I guess, yeah, mentioning too that like we have a couple new writers this year for season two too, which is like really exciting.
Yeah, it's cool to hear more voices amplified, like with Alexander Nunez and having Annie in more of a leadership role with the story editing and stuff. I think it just sort of brings so much more to the surface than would have ever happened otherwise, which I love.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's so cool. So do you have a favorite character from, I mean, listen, we don't need to say me because we just know you're going to say that. That's fine. No, I'm totally kidding. But from season one, do you have something like more specifically someone who surprised you in how you related to that character or that storyline that maybe was like, oh, I didn't think that I would relate to someone like that, but this sort of bumped up for me?
You know, I guess because I'm kind of a manther and Brenda's kind of a cougar.
Oh, manther! Oh, so coined. Here, you heard it here. Right
I
now.
most relate with her. No, I mean, you know, I get excited by seeing casting choices like that too, right? Like where we're bringing on really talented actors who are seasoned, and you know, like a Meg Ruffman, like a Brenda Robbins, like a Jefferson Mappin, etc. That it's fun to see them get to play and let their hair down in like a brand new way, maybe in ways that they haven't done before in their career. So that's been really cool. And then definitely Alexander Nunez, just because like, you know, when he was originally brought on, it was like for an actor role. And then like day by day, everybody just kept falling in love with him. And I remember, I think you, Heidi, and our director, Sam, like all came up to me at different points and were like, can we hire him for more days?
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
I think we should. Yeah, let's do that, you know? And now, he's grown into be one of the screenwriters. So that's super cool, you know? And seeing somebody who has the confidence and the comedy to just like take a few lines and like spin it into this whole world, right?
You, blew it out of the water. So what do you think, I mean, and this is a very broad question, and I've been getting really interesting different answers, so there's no right answer here, but what do you think makes a good TV show or for you? What is the thing that draws you in?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, there's a lot of discussion with, you know, when I'm pitching networks or speaking with other producers or screenwriters, and, you know, story comes first. That's always been this kind of mantra that's like repeated over and over in the industry, and we say it to each other and stuff. And definitely that's so important, because if you don't have it, we won't become engaged as an audience. But I think what trumps story, and especially like the mechanics of story, in terms of like, oh, by this time this has to happen, and then this has to happen, and etc., is character, right? Like we need to fall in love with like, who are we going on this journey on? Who am I getting in the car, you know, or the roller coaster with to take this trip? because if I can empathize with you and my heart is moved by you from one human to, the next, it doesn't matter what we're going to do, I'm going to be involved in your stakes and want to see you, go to the end of the earth to succeed, or die trying.
Yeah, 100%.
So,
yeah, and I think that is for me too. It's like I want to get sucked into this person's world and see how that plays out. So I think that's super important.
that's a tricky thing to do, especially in scripted, right? Because we want to know, it's like, tell me the synopsis, give me the log line, etc. And it can be hard to like define a character in 2 sentences. How do you do that? How could, just like I couldn't give a log line to your life or any other person's life in 2 sentences, that would be worthy of the experience of being here and all that you go through.
Yeah.
So
what an interesting way of thinking about that, because that is, you want a full character, and you want to have all these different divergent storylines of that one person. But yeah, how do you logline a real person's life?
I mean, that's one of the major challenges that we face. That's kind of like the business mechanics of it, right? Is like, we got to sell this story and, because it's still a business at the end of the day. And yeah, that's the tough stuff, which is, I guess, sometimes when we go and we'll make like a proof of concept video, right? Or a trailer, or like just even one person, get them on tape and see a minute or couple minutes. And because when that it factor exists, and I think the it exists in all of us, it's just a matter of like when we let it shine and when we, are really being our most authentic self to be seen, to allow ourselves to be seen, as opposed to like layering and putting on a bunch of things that hide our light, hide our specialness, right?
Yeah.
So when we can do that, when we can be like brave enough to just be truly our core essence, then we're going to shine bright and people will, want to go on our story journey, whatever that is.
Right. Oh, that's so cool. And is that something that you feel when people are pitching you projects, that's sort of what you're looking for in the pitch package? Like, you want to see that one character story arc that you're like, I'm going to get in the car with him, or that.
Often part of it. Yeah. And yet I also go a lot by, there's a lot of gut instinct involved for sure. And I'll back up. I'll say that it's not that I don't put it through kind of a business mechanical strainer first, right? To be like, what else exists like this? Who are our like competitors out there? What are they doing? Has this been done before? Has it been done recently? How did that perform, et cetera? All these kind of, more, perhaps more boring and less like heart involved looks at the story and at the business of what that project is. Beyond that, if it like kind of makes it through the strainer, then that's when it's time for me to really look at those people who are involved and see, do they have the fire in their eyes that's going to take them to the finish line? Because this business isn't something that where projects are done overnight, right? Like, we are married to them for years.
Yes.
When we're the producers or the creators and stuff, right? So you have to have that excitement about it that's going to carry you from that inception of the idea through all the trials and tribulations, because there's going to be a lot of them, bear traps and snags and tripwires and dynamite and all types of things. Because, if I'm going to partner with somebody, you want to make sure that they're trustworthy, that they make you laugh, that you can cry with them, that you can trust them, most importantly, before you press go. But there's a lot of times that I press that go button before that whole picture is clear, because we need to, just like in a friendship or a new relationship or whatever else, right? Like, you need to just trust there's something there, and I feel magnetism.
Yes.
So I'm going to trust it, and let's go,
Yeah.
And especially in my documentary work, because there is no roadmap, right? So in that, it's really about like, when we're casting in documentary or looking at interesting subjects or people,
Yeah.
There is no roadmap. You don't know where it's going to go. You don't know what the story is going to be. You don't know what their challenges and conflicts and stuff, might percolate and bubble up in order for you to film.
Right.
And also trusting that they are going to open their home and their heart and their lives and relationships in ways that will be able to craft a story from it.
Right. Yeah. And I guess it's just trusting what that sort of baseline story is and then who that person is. And sort of in that vein with trusting who you're going to work with and that journey, do you think that there's anything when you're looking at story that you feel a responsibility to the audience or the world culture where you feel that you need to then amplify a voice in that way? In that filmmaking world, how do you feel a responsibility for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people will ask me a lot, well, how come how come you're not acting anymore? How come you're not on screen and stuff? And because I used to, that was my life. That's what I did and, was my passion for a long time.
Yes.
And at some point I, also fell in love with the writing and the producing and directing and stuff. But what I found is like what gives me the most joy now is handing that mic to other people and like swinging the spotlight in their direction. And because it's surprising and fun and invigorating in new ways to see what those people do, and yeah, like in terms of as a company, like we've always tried to amplify, create, and lift up LGBTQ voices and stories, because when I was growing up, those didn't exist. And they weren't something they weren't in the history books, or they had been removed from the history books.
Right.
And when you remove people's history and you remove their, identity or their, you devalue relationships and love for them, you're taking away a lot of the human experience for somebody, right? Yeah. So to put back on the screen and, stories that could reflect the authentic experience of queer people in ways that where we weren't vilified or shown to have a mental illness, or that we were going to commit a heinous crime or be involved in some type of, like very unfortunate end, was important. And it doesn't mean that like we can't now create stories where things like that happen, but it's not great if all of our stories put us in a very similar box that wasn't painted by us, right?
Yeah. Or like a one-dimensional character who is only there because they are queer, and
totally
their life does not exist outside of that. So
yeah,
I agree. I know I'm wearing my Representation Matters shirt today.
Nice. Love that.
State of the world. And this is from our first Klexicon adventure, but I think it's so true. Like it has to be on screen. And I think it's so important as filmmakers to help amplify that as queer filmmakers, for sure.
Yeah. And I think, now that, I mean, that's really the foundation of what we do. But beyond that, I'm discovering new super important voices to amplify, and one is like women in key positions, right? As director, as producer, as screenwriter, as art director, as editors.
Yeah.
And like I'm super proud of Avocado Toast as one show where we were like check, like all those boxes, like going beyond gender parity, because otherwise there's this vicious cycle, right, that exists for any marginalized group if you're not sharing those opportunities around, and especially those key positions that really influence a business or a story. Then the world and the stories that we're sharing aren't as fulsome and wholesome as they can be.
Yeah, I agree. And you were such a huge champion of that for us. It was great. Thank you for that.
Well, more.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Do you have any like great lessons from your vast experiences in front of and behind the camera in terms of failures that have been turned into successes, or things that you've learned along? I don't like the word failure, but I keep phrasing it like that. But just things where you thought, oh, this is terrible, and then it's actually helped elevate where you are now?
Yeah, I think you'll overhear Thomas chatting there. Maybe he'll
Yeah, that's okay.
But yeah, I fail every day. And on every project, like multiple times, like I fuck up royally. And I think our growth can come when we have the humility to acknowledge it, to face it, and to say, okay, I didn't know that. How can we address it? How can I do better? And then try to actually do better, because that's going through those hoops, testing our mettle in brand new ways is how we're going to grow and get stronger. And it's not always easy. It's tough. Like on our TV show Drag Heels, which is in its second season and coming out now, there's massive growth there for me. And that's a weird thing to admit, because I think I'm a champion of LGBTQ stories, and yet there was lots of stories in that alphabet, the queer alphabet, that I hadn't engaged with as much as I could, right? And so even I was tangentially involved, right? That's experience and an area of growth for myself for sure. But that's something that I recognized, especially this season, in season 2, when we have a youngest cast member who's 19 and the eldest in their 70s, and every gender and sexuality and kind of creative play within the drag space that many people aren't totally familiar with. And I was one of those, but sitting in the producer director chair, so I'm learning as we go, and in retrospect, like I just, that's one where I wish I could have done more learning and go back and do it again. And yet it's, I'm also very proud of the show. I think it's a heart squeezer. Like there's a lot of learning, but there's just so much real human emotion shared so freely and courageously that it made our job very easy. It was just like, turn on the cameras, the mics are working, go. Okay, these people are sharing their lives, and that, in such an unfiltered way that made it really relatable and gripping.
Right. Oh, it's so true. And what I was also able to be a part of the audience in the final performance, I feel like it's very humbling to realize you're like, oh, I'm a part of the queer space, but I actually didn't know that story, or I didn't know what it's like to exist as that. And so I think it's really interesting for you to say, like, okay, so next time or going forward, that humility factor.
Yeah, totally. That it's impossible for any of us to speak for each other, right? In a way that, well, we just can't, So I think that's where we come back to, like, the importance of sharing and the importance of really highlighting different voices and giving them time and space to share their story, right? That's where we're going to grow, and recognizing where it's like, okay, not my turn.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Charlie. And I'd like to thank Ontario Creates too, because they've been such a huge partner and sponsor. And yeah, it's just been really, really wonderful to work with them.
Totally. We're so fortunate to be able to create here, right? With so much support and so many awesome people to play with.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. More platforms and more people to reach every day. So it's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know how busy you are, so I don't want to keep you longer, but it's been so wonderful to see
Always happy to chat with you.
Yeah. Anytime. Yeah, it's been great. It's been too long, I think.
Yeah.
Other than yesterday when we got to see.
Other than that,
yeah. No, it was great. Awesome.
All right. Bye.
Okay, bye. Thank you so much for listening.
And thank you to Ontario Creates for the support to make Avocado Toast, the series podcast, possible. You can pick your player to watch all 10 episodes of Avocado Toast, the series at www.avocadotoasttheseries.com.
We'd also love to give a huge shout out to Russell Lauder for the use of their beautiful song, Cost of Living. You can find more of their music sprinkled throughout the episodes of our web series, as well as on Spotify, Bandcamp, and iTunes. And links to their social media is in our show notes.